Okay, good morning. Good morning. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I'm very glad to be with you again here. You are around 14 watching me here. Perhaps there are other people watching, maybe using the link on other platforms. But in any case, let me greet Si Mustafa Morshid. Hello. Si Mohamed Bouissan. Hello. I hope you are doing well too, Si Mohamed. Asma Tuhan, hello. Shayma Alami, hello. Good evening, she says. Si Hisham Darfouf, hello. Hiba Hinawi, hello. Great professor, I hope you're doing well. Thank you. Thank you, Hiba. Thank you so much. Good evening, Nathalie Leblanc. Si Mohamed Bouknifi, ahlan wa sahlan. Si انت هو البهي سي محمد. تبارك الله عليك. Hello, Sada Samia. I hope everyone is doing well here. As is mentioned in the title of the announcement, we will treat maybe a variety of issues in the form of question answers, partly because, the exams are drawing near and students might wonder, for example, how to handle a specific point. We never know. I don't guarantee that I will give correct answer or accurate answers to all the questions, but this is an attempt maybe to interact with, to be responsive to a number of questions and requests here. Amina Bey, hello. Reem Siraji, Ustad Siraji, ahlan wa sahlan. Hello, dear colleague. All the best, inshallah. Thank you so much. Si Mohamed Rida Itqan, hello. I hope you are doing well. Asma Es Sadiq, good evening. Garih Mohammed, hello. Hello, everyone. Well, I have received a number of requests in the private message. Some asking me about the reactions. I'm sorry, I have a little problem in the eye. It keeps, I don't know, it keeps crying. Because I'm really tired. When I try some droplets, they show an effect. But when I'm too tired, it's just like that. In any case. So I will try to answer questions of maybe from different modules, namely, so as I stated in the title, phonology, syntax, and quantitative data analysis. But there might be questions about other modules, grammar, maybe a composition. Anyway, different requests from different students. Okay. Fine. So I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope those of you who are preparing for their exams, I hope that their preparation is taking place in the best circumstances possible. Now, I would like to get to get the first questions, just to start directly, and then maybe we will not stay for long. Anyway, it is this contact that is the renewing of this contact that matters. So, well, just this evening, there was a group of students at the master's program who asked me, for a general overview of the different points that have been covered in quantitative data analysis. That's a module that they have at the master's level. But if there are preliminary questions to this, and I got even a request on distinctive features, in the form of a comment this time, not a private message. But anyway, I wish I can have specific questions when it comes to distinctive features. Okay, Amina Bey is asking a question. Hello, I find it hard to memorize the IPA chart and transcribe it. It is challenging when we do not know the IPA chart. How can I remember most of it? Amina Bey, I would agree with you. I fully agree with you when you talk about the difficulty inherent in learning the IPA symbols in the chart. One reason is that they are symbols. We do not use them so often in our writings, and we believe, and this is unfortunate, this is probably the reason why you have this difficulty. We believe that they will be useful only before the exam and on the day of the exam. After the exam, they become useless. If we approach the matter with this mindset, then make sure that it will be difficult for you. Now, what you need to bear in mind, Amina Bey, first, is that the learning of the IPA symbols will be with you for as long as you are alive, with and for as long as you are alive, and as long as you will need English. If you have, for example, this intention of becoming a teacher of English one day, then in one way or another you need to know what IPA is, because there might be a student who will ask you, teacher, for example, I see that the dictionary is providing me with a word and some symbols that I can't understand. You should be there to understand, to make them understand. So one way of making them understand is to understand them first. So without further ado, Amina, and by the way, before I answer you, Amina, this is a message for the students and the friends who are at their S1, S2. Try to do this on your own, because this is anyway, this is generally covered in S1. There is a module called Spoken English, and there is a very important component called the phonetic component, where you learn how to transcribe and how to describe sounds. Then there is a module in S4 that is called Introduction to Linguistics. And in Introduction to Linguistics, there is a whole component, a whole chapter. Some students, spend, some groups, some teachers would spend 2 weeks just on phonetics. That's deserved, because there is a lot of detail when it comes to description, transcription. And then there is this module of S5 where the student is supposed, the problem with S5 phonology is that this knowledge is presupposed, because you're not going to learn everything from scratch at the level of S4. You are supposed to know these things before. Now, what is the remedy, Amina Bey? What is the remedy? Because there are exams drawing near and you have this difficulty. Number one, you need to create some sort of motivation from within. That is to say, you should understand that you are not learning these things just for the exam. It's for your life later on. So one way of doing it, especially for the vowels, but for consonants, it's easier. For vowels, Amina, I hope you are listening to me. For vowels, probably what you need to do is do that in terms of sessions, in terms of time slots. For example, let me give you a concrete example. So you take the vowel chart that you have. We're talking about the vowel chart specifically. Take the vowel chart and try to, for example, reserve one slot, maybe a 1 hour slot, 1 hour, for high versus low. So you should know what high vowels are and what low vowels are and where they are located. And you should try to take a pen or a pencil and write them. You look at the first line, for example, the top first line, where you have E and then you have U. Just learn one line. Call them high vowels. And then in another session, you may choose to learn low vowels. The best way of learning, as you do this, Amina, as you do this, try to find examples from the languages that you know, not necessarily English, where this sound exists. Try to provide words. Try to look for words. Okay, try to look for words where these vowels exist, and then we will automatize them, of course, after some time. So slot 1 for the top line, high, for example, or high low. It's easy anyway. And then another session means between half an hour and 1 hour for front versus back. And then another session just for central vowels. As you do this, I repeat, you need, of course, to provide or to look for examples where these phonetic symbols, these pronunciations, or that are pronounced using these phonetic, or whose pronunciation, where there is a vowel that is pronounced by using, I'm sorry, let me say it again. You look for words where the pronunciation is represented by that phonetic symbol. For example, there is a typical vowel. Just imagine if you will learn high vowels, you have the vowel U, and then maybe you can check your dictionary and then you look for a word like put, and then you learn it by heart. You learn the word put, and you learn the other words. So try not to learn the chart at one go. Okay, because of course, if you have not had the habit of doing this transcription before, it will be hard. So this is one solution. This is one ad hoc solution, because there is the exam coming up. Now, for consonants, I would suggest to Amina and to every student here to um, to learn it using the three dimensions, three-dimensional description. You need to specify voicing. It's very easy to specify a sound for voicing. Give me any sound, and I can tell you whether it's voiced or not. Probably a sound I have not heard before. Why? Because it's enough to take your finger and touch this part here, and you blow, pronouncing this vowel or this consonant, of course, this sound. And if you can feel that there is vibration here, it means it's voiced. No vibration, voiceless. Okay? But try not to whisper the word. Try not, because if you whisper it, it will never vibrate. You see? For example, you have man, all the sounds in man are voiced, and then a, and then n. There is vibration. But if I try to whisper to pronounce it by means of a whisper, of course it will be voiceless. You will not know. So no voice, everything is voiceless. So try to pronounce it the normal way, and then you will see. That's as far as voicing is concerned. This is a very good test. For place of articulation, Amina and the rest, you have to learn, each time, each slot. Again, you divide this into slots, maybe half an hour slot, where you learn one place of articulation. For example, the labials. The labials are the sounds that are produced by using one of the lips at least. Okay, they are called labials. These are family members. A bilabial means you have two lips that are in action, p, m, etc. And then you have the labiodental, like f and f. Okay, and in some languages you have bilabial fricatives, like f, which we don't have in the languages that are around us. This way, you will certainly, so you learn it by place and then by manner. So if I were you, starting, from scratch, then I would. So for vowels, I gave you the technique. Now for the consonants, again, each slot for one aspect. You have voicing, place, manner. One day for voicing, it's not even one day, it's half an hour for voicing, because you know the technique now, so it's not at stake anymore. Then you have one day for place of articulation and another day for manner of articulation. This way you will have covered everything. So a phonetic symbol presupposes that you know how to pronounce the word. And if it's at S5, the level of S5, of course, there are some data sets where you have a sound that does not exist in the languages that you speak. Maybe you are given sounds from exotic languages, and this necessitates that you go back to the chart and try to learn and try to get them, to retrieve them. So the best way is to have this chart, and for vowels, and then try to learn them every slot for one dimension. In vowels, we have three dimensions. We have how high the tongue is in the oral cavity, what part of the tongue is involved in the pronunciation of a given sound, and then is there lip rounding. For lip rounding, it's easy because you can physically see whether the lips are involved or not. But for the others, you probably need to do some training, but divide the tasks. Where. So that's ladies and gentlemen, this is a general piece of advice. Whenever you find out that there is a difficult task for you, there's something you don't understand, break it into manageable chunks. This is a very good technique that works for most of the tasks that are otherwise difficult to handle. Amina, I hope I have provided you with part of the, and you need to do some practice, of course, with your friends, and I'm sure you meet in groups like WhatsApp or virtually or in face-to-face, and then this will help you learn faster when it comes to these things. Okay, so Mustafa Morshid is asking this very important question, this important yet long-standing question as to why pragmatics is referred to as wastebasket. No, pragmatics is not actually referred to as the wastebasket, but at one point in time where people were so fascinated by the ideas of generative grammar and the assumption behind what language is, and how language is acquired, people at that time thought about the centrality of syntax. They said, they used to make these points, that syntax is the center of linguistic competence. And then, of course, we have after the linguistic processes, the syntactic processes take place in the form of movements. There is what we call S structure, where you have logical form and then phonetic form, and then after comes factors like context that assigns meaning. So this is that assigns meaning to utterances, and following this logic, pragmatics and also semantics to some extent, were disregarded as being secondary as compared to syntax and other core components of the language. But so this is a very this idea that pragmatics is a wastebasket of linguistics. It characterizes just a specific period of time in the history of what we call modern linguistics, but it's not, in fact, because there is good reason. Even now, syntactic phenomena, there are syntactic phenomena that are inexplicable if you don't bring up context, like shared knowledge, like culture, like discourse. So it's not really there. So it's not really a wastebasket. This just reflects some theoretical faith and theoretical allegiance to the then spectacularly interesting theory of or paradigm of generative linguistics. It's very generative, and it has fallen. It's no longer. It is now out of fashion as an idea. Hiba Hinawi, what the difference between case filter and case features? Okay, thank you. That's good. Okay, thank you, Hiba. Okay, so Mustafa, I have answered this question. I have attempted to answer this question. In fact, now we have another question from Hiba Hinawi. Hinawi. Well, what is the difference between case filter and case features? Case filter, not filters, it's without S. Case filter, Hiba, is a universal principle. Let's call it a universal constraint as well. It's a principle, it's a constraint. Anyway, it applies to all, we find it in all languages. What does it tell us? It tells us that you cannot have a noun phrase in a sentence, in a grammatical sentence. You cannot have an NP, a noun phrase. For some, it's a DP, determiner phrase. Both are correct. But anyway, so you have a noun phrase in a finite clause. If that noun phrase is caseless, that is to say, if it's not in the nominative case, if it's not in the accusative case, it's not in the oblique case, it's not in other cases. Now, the question is, can we really find noun phrases that violate case filter? Yes, we can, but the sentence is ungrammatical. Let me give you an example. But before I give you an example, for case filter, the ones, if you are an S5 student, then we will mostly deal with accusative case and nominative case. For nominative case, the nominative case assigner is inflection, or in other analysis, it's tense, T, or I, it's I0. I0 has this role, has this job of assigning nominative case to the noun phrases that are subjects of clauses. Okay? Now, for noun phrases that are direct objects, we say that they have accusative case, and this accusative case is assigned by the verb, by virtue of having a complement, which is the NP. So it assigns accusative case to its complement. Okay, so here we're talking about nominative case, accusative case, nominative case assigned by inflection or by tense, and accusative case assigned by the verb. Okay, now when we have something like, you follow me, I hope you are following. So Amina, just imagine we have a sentence like excuse I. Excuse I means when you want to apologize, you say excuse I. Is it correct? No, it's not correct, obviously. Why? It's because excuse, it means you excuse. It's we have a verb there, to excuse someone. So excuse the NP that comes after excuse should be its direct object, and therefore it should be assigned accusative case. Except that in excuse I, the I there is typical of a pronoun that has to be as a subject. After all, it's referred to as a subject pronoun or a subjective pronoun. So here we have a problem. We have a misapplication of the rule of case assignment. The verb, the transitive verb to excuse, has assigned the wrong case in a sense, or the NP is assigned the wrong case because it is supposed to take accusative case, and therefore how do we know that it's supposed to take the accusative case? Because it should appear in the accusative form, that is to say in the objective form. It should be excuse me, not I. The verb assigns accusative case to I and makes of it a me. You understand me? So, however, just as we cannot say excuse I, we cannot say me excuse you. Can we? No, we can't. Me excuse you. Why? It's because me, which is a noun phrase, is again assigned the wrong case this time. Because inflection, I0, should assign to the subject nominative case, not accusative case. So we have an I, so me excuse you. Me here is not okay. It's not okay because we need an NP in that position that is assigned nominative case. By what? By the info, or by the I0 or the T0, the info. So generally, this is case filter. This is case filter. Wherever there is a case, there is an NP, there has to be a case assigned, especially nominative case, accusative case, but there are other cases. Now, just imagine that we have, can I say, okay, if I give you this question, if you have this question in the exam, I don't know if you are my student or not, but if you have this question in the exam, why is it that the sentence I traveling tomorrow and grammatical? I traveling tomorrow is ungrammatical. I am traveling tomorrow is grammatical. It's okay, but I traveling, no. Why not? Because here I will be the subject, and next to it you have traveling without the auxiliary. It means what? It means that you have a non-finite verb. It's an non-finite verb in the ing infinitive. You understand? So you know that when a verb is in the ing but there is no auxiliary, the verb is not conjugated because conjugation falls on the auxiliary. You see? So we say that I traveling tomorrow is ungrammatical because traveling is what? Is an unconjugated verb. It's a non-finite verb. So the info is minus tense minus agreement. And just for you, if you have problem with what is minus tense minus agreement, it's very easy. When you find that the verb is conjugated in a clause, then the info or the T, depends on what framework you are adopting, the inflection or the tense, should be specified with features as plus tense plus agreement. When the verb is not conjugated, it's minus tense minus agreement. Now, the question is, can an inflection, an I0 or a T0, can it assign nominative case if it's not finite? No, because for case assignment, that's what case filter says. It's an appendix, in fact, to case filter. Only finite infos are able to assign case. So I traveling tomorrow is ungrammatical because I is not, it violates case filter. How do I know? You can say it doesn't have nominative case. How do I know it doesn't have nominative case? Because the info which will assign it case is non-finite. It's minus tense minus agreement. So it cannot assign a feature that it does not have. Okay, good. So this is as far as case filter is concerned. Now, you asked me to make a difference between case filter and case features. So for case filter, it's fine. Case features, I mean, So feature specifications plus nominative plus accusative. These are just features that we give to the noun just to make it known, to specify it, to define it as whether it is a subject or an object or something else. Okay, so features are always in the form of pluses and minuses. Okay, so that's the thing. So you probably need to worry more about case filter, because that's a technical term. Case features, well, we just use them when we say we assign case, it gives it features. I gives its features to NP, which is the subject, and the V gives accusative case. It specifies, it gives it features of accusative case. Gives features of accusative case to the nearby noun phrase, and WH, moves in order to pick up case features, not case features, WH features, etc. So I think I have made it clear enough to you. Okay, fine. Natalie Leblanc says, could you please explain the difference between one-way ANOVA and two-way ANOVA? Okay, so you have in one-way ANOVA, what you have is just one dependent variable with a dependent. So you have one dependent variable which is continuous, and an independent variable that has two or more. You see, two or more levels. Okay. Now for two-way ANOVA, it's when you have you see two types of, for example, you have one dependent variable, but you have two independent variables each, okay, with their levels, with the 2 or 3 or 4 levels, and then you do that by means of a 2 by 2 table. For example, it's not just one-way ANOVA. You can have a two-way ANOVA, three-way ANOVA, depending on the independent variables that you have, but the principle is the same. Okay, and you have what we call factorial ANOVA. All right. Now the thing to bear in mind, as whatever the ANOVA version you have, Natalie, is that you check for Levin's test for the homogeneity of differences, and then you look for the within subject and between subject, means that you look for whether there is significance or not, and there is always this post hoc table that is generated. Okay, so this design of one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA, multiple, okay, we can call it factorial ANOVA. This will depend, the more independent variables you have, the more the number there. Okay, so in our class we used the one-way ANOVA as an example, and just for expository convenience, because it's very simple, it's direct, where you have one DV dependent variable which is continuous, and the independent variable has more than 2 levels. Okay, nice. اهلا استاذ اعتماد, good evening, I hope you are doing well. الله يرحم الوالد والله يصبركم. I hope you have got out of the sadness of we never get out of the sadness of losing our parents, but I'm sure you are strong, and you have been a very obedient daughter and very caring. So I'm sure you are satisfied with what you did with your dad. Allah yarhamhu. Okay, see Mustafa. Okay, he's talking to Atimat bint Akhu Zakaria. Hello, dear professor. I found it hard to distinguish between complement and adjunct when it comes to noun phrases, although I know that the two arguments of adjacency and recursive is there a trick to it? Okay, thank you. So if there is one trick, bint Akhu Zakaria, let's just take this example. Let's take the classical example, okay? Let's take let's say the man of principles in the classroom. The man of principles in the class or in the room, let's say, just to make it a bit. The man of principles on a chair, okay? The man of principles on that chair. I repeat, the man of principles on that chair. Man of principles. So here, of principles, is it a complement or an adjunct? Of course, it's a complement, you know that. And on that chair, because it's an adverb of place, then automatically all adverbs qualify as adjuncts, and therefore we need to create a copy of our n bar. Now, if you would like, that's a very good question, by the way. Don't think that you are asking a question that is typical of a question asked by just any student. No, no, this is very interesting because you want to understand and you are looking for a trick, and there is one, of course, at least one. If you want to distinguish between the two, try to reverse them. That's number one. Try to reverse them. Or try to insert another element and see if it's going to work or not. Let's try it. Now, the man of principles on that chair. Can I say the man on that chair of principles and grammatical? Proving what? Proving that of principles is a complement and on that chair is an adjunct. Why? Because when we compare complements and adjuncts, one difference is that complements are closer to the head than are adjuncts. And therefore, of principles should always be closer, no matter how many adjuncts you have, no matter what the type of adjunct you have, the fact remains that it has, the complement has to be closer to the head than our adjuncts. So one thing you can do is to reverse. That's number one. When you reverse, it's not going to work if one of them is a complement, the other is an adjunct. Until you place the complement near the head and the adjunct later. Now, can I say the man of principles of high morals over there, for example, on that chair? The man of principles of high morals. No, we cannot say that. Of high moral principles, yes. Can I say, for example, the driver of this taxi, this taxi sitting there? Can I say the driver sitting there of this taxi? No. Can I say the driver of this taxi of that lorry? No. You see? So try to think up hypothetical other elements, like to say, try to think up other hypothetical complements. If you invent one more complement and place it near the other complement, it's not going to work because because we talked about recursiveness and multiplicity. The adjunct rule is recursive, means that we have more than one adjunct, no problem. But for complements, you have only one, one adjunct. A book of history, the book of history on the table. The book on the table of history, it's not going to work. So we have reversed here and we have found out that it does not work, which means that in the correct sentence, the element that comes immediately after the NP is, of course, its complement. The other thing that we can do as a test is to see something like, is to produce something like the book of history of geology. It's not going to work. Why? Because we know that universally the complement rule is not recursive. But I can say the book of geology on the table, maybe in a white cover on the table. You see? So we can have this. These are tricks. Try to invent and try to reverse, and I'm sure you will find that that's the trick, Mr. Bindhu Zakaria. Amina Bay says, yes, I am. I hope I was clear on what I said in regard to the question you have asked. English and Arabic journey with Hussein, keep shining. Thank you very much, Sir Hussein. Really kind of you. Understood. Thank you so much for that's what I am. That's my aim. My aim is to help you understand, hopefully in an easier way and in a softer way than you can otherwise. Just don't be tense. Don't be stressed. You will understand everything. I repeat the trick. Whenever there is something you don't understand, whether it's in phonetics, in phonology, syntax, break the task into manageable chunks, little by little. Okay, many a little makes a miracle, as I said once in one of the videos. Si Mohammed Bouknefi, Mr. Mustafa, historically pragmatics used to. We have a pragmatician here, someone who is a specialist. So Mr. Mustafa, historically pragmatics used to cover so many topics. It has served as a catch all category as some topic are hard to categorize. By the way, I'm working on pragmatics. That's the thing. That's the thing, Si Mohammed Bouknifi. No, but in the early days of generativism, there were two schools of thought actually related to the place of semantics. Was more semantics because pragmatics is an outgrowth of semantics. They placed semantics. They have two different people had two different positions. We had generative semantics and interpretive semantics. Generative semanticists were making the point that meaning is generated at the base. So we don't have just syntactic structure and X bar principles at deep structure or in the base component, but rather meaning was at the heart of that component. So this is called generative semantics, and of course syntax derives later on. So there were some devices to link the two levels, but interpretive semantics says no. What we have at the base is syntax, and then we have transformations, and we have S structures, and then we have PF form or LF form, logical form, which is the assignment of meaning to sentences and phrases. There were, even before generativism, anyway, structuralism had little to do with the study of meaning. They were more concerned with the form, like phonetics, phonology, syntax, etc., under different names. But interestingly, in the late 40s, there emerged two branches of linguistics that died away scarcely had they been born. One of them is called tagmimics, and the other one is glossematics. So that was an attempt to assign meaning to words somehow, but I don't know the mechanisms that people used, the ones who adhere to this tradition. But in any case, they fell into oblivion so soon. Okay, nice. So let's move on, please, with the questions. Gareth Mohammed, any useful resources to master phonology? I had occasion, we talked about that, see Gareth Mohammed. By resources, if you are referring to any easy textbook, I strongly recommend. I even downloaded it. It's available online. I have a copy here. It's Phonology. It's an introduction to phonology by Francis Katamba. The language is easy and straightforward. There is no much talk, so there are examples based primarily on English data, but there are of course other languages. So why can't you download it? It's available anyway. So it's called Introduction to Phonology, Francis Katamba. Okay, that's a good resource for phonology. All right. Yes, really thankful for the advice. Amina says, I'm thinking, yeah, do that, Amina, and you will and do that with the understanding that you will not learn that just for the exam. You will become a teacher one day, and you will pride yourself on mastering, okay, those elements relating to phonetics and the International Phonetic Alphabet. You never know. But sometimes the jury, when you are in front of jury members, you may expect a question relating to, can you use IPA? What is IPA? So you should know. Can you write your name using IPA? Okay, these are things, just to try to get ready, not just for the exam, but also later on. Because when you think that that you are learning something just because there is an exam, it becomes heavy, believe me. That's one. The other thing is, once you have taken the exam, you forget about everything. There is no retention of the information, which is not the objective of education, of course. So try to, learn, things for the long run. Good evening, Nawal. I hope you are doing well. Fine. Before Nawal, I think there is Shayma Alami. Okay. Shayma Alami, could you please share a PDF or any resource on major class features, place of articulation, and manner of articulation? I would really appreciate your help. Shayma, I promise all I need are at least 3 people here. If I get the request from at least 3 people to reserve a live session tomorrow, there was no intention to have it, but I will come to talk about this specific point, place of articulation, manner of articulation, and maybe voicing and the related features. So if you think I can do that, then just let me know by maybe a message in the private. Message me in the private, please. If there are 3 requests, I will prioritize them and I will come to talk about this tomorrow, even if that may take us more than 1 hour. There is no problem with that. Shayba, have you heard this? Okay, check with your classmates and see if this deserves a session, and then we can do that live and with the examples and maybe using the board so that you can understand things better than maybe having a textbook that can take time and effort and energy. But the textbook is again Francis Katamba. Just go for it. It's very easy and it's straightforward. All right. So Noel says good evening. Good evening, Noel. Asma Sadiq, could you explain the segmentation and syllabification example? Yes. And consonant clusters. Yes. Again, this is something that deserves an answer, of course. Now, what is so who asked this question? Asma Sadiq. Look, Asma. If you want to syllabify, it's very easy. So everything is easy. We just complicate life sometimes. If you want to syllabify any word, especially a word that you know, okay, what you need to do is first to know how it is pronounced. That's for sure. And then you do what you used to do maybe in junior high school or in primary school when you was to sing maybe a word or a sentence by, you utter the word by knocking on the table. I'm talking to Asma Sadiq. Just follow me, please, Asma Sadiq. Okay? When you do it this way, give me any example. Let's say Phonetics eraser. How? This is an eraser, okay? Eraser. What is the syllabification of eraser? Before we move on to onset, I know that you are asking me about this, but first we have to know how to segment and how to divide a word into syllables. Now, when I say eraser, look at this. One possibility, and let me tell you now, one crazy possibility is to say what? So we have eraser like this. One way of doing it is like this. This is on the face of it. This is justice. Why justice? Because every part you have vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. You see? But things don't work like that, my friends. We do not segment based on how many elements we have in a given word. No. We segment, we syllabify, we assign syllables, or we divide a word into syllables based on the ear. And the best way of doing this based on the ear is to knock on the table or to clap the hand as you pronounce the word. And you may have other methods, like, for example, using this remote and hitting it against the computer. Just imagine. Okay? So this has to do more with the ear. It's the ear before this. Okay? Of course, let me say that this is not the right way of doing it. So if I say eraser, just imagine we want to sing the word eraser. This is an eraser, eraser. You see? So we have E, and then ray, and then sir. So eraser should be E, ray, and then sir. Eraser. So ray should be like this phonetically. Anyway, eraser. My aim is not phonetic transcription, but so look, eraser. This is not okay. This is okay. You see? We have one element here. We have 3 elements here, but this is okay. So because it doesn't have to do with the number or the counting of of the elements of the consonants and vowels there. It has to do with the ear first. You got the point or no? Now, with this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what a syllable is. What is a syllable? By the way, the notation for the word syllable, like the syllable boundary, when you write the phonological rule, is this. This is the symbol for, okay, syllable boundary. I mean, when you have something like this, it means that the sound occurs syllable initially. And when you have something like this, it means that the sound occurs syllable finally. Now, this is as far as the rule is concerned, the phonological rule, where you have information about the syllable boundary. But for the representation of the word syllable, you use the sigma. This is syllable. This is how we use it. Sigma, because it's an S and syllable starts with S, you see, and syllable in French, in Spanish, there is a version of, I think it's syllaba or syllabo, no, syllaba, I guess. And then that comes from Latin. That explains the sigma. Sigma, c'est le S. Okay, nice. So a syllable, traditionally, or the ideal form of a syllable is that, an ideal syllable is one, for example, and even ideal is relative, because that depends on the language. But anyway, a typical syllable, let's say. Let's look for the word put. Let's consider, the verb put. Put is a syllable. How many syllables are there in put? Just one. You see? Put, like that. Now, this syllable here has what? It has three elements. It has a consonantal element, a vocalic element, and another consonantal element. So here, this is a consonant, so the first consonant, the consonant before the vowel, within one syllable, like put here, it's one syllable. Its vowel, because we have one syllable, the vowel there is called a nucleus, like this. We call it nucleus. Nucleus means le noyau, means nawat. See, you have anyway a throat or whatever, and inside it there is that central thing. It's called nawat. It's called the central part. It's called the core part. We also call it the core. See, so this is a nucleus. A nucleus has to be a vowel. So wherever there is a vowel, ladies and gentlemen, wherever there is a vowel cannot be an onset. It cannot be a coda. So the element that you have before the vowel is called onset, like this. This is called nucleus. And the last one is also a consonant, and it's called coda. So to represent put, we have to have something like this, okay? Look, so we have a syllable like this. We have an onset, which is p, a nucleus, which is u, and then a coda, which is t. All right? Now, I challenge you. Can you produce a syllable where the vowel is not a nucleus? No, we cannot. And this is a universal principle, because there is no language that goes against this. In all languages, vowels are the central parts of the syllable. They are referred to as the peak of the syllable. Why do we call it peak? Peak means the zenith, means the highest point. So in a syllable, the most sonorous element is the vowel. If you compare consonants and vowels, what is it makes a vowel a vowel? It's the sonority. It's the loudest. So in a syllable, the nucleus is the one that has the loudest pitch. It's the loudest sound voice. It's loudest here. So you start slowly. Put. You see the O there is the one that is most audible. While, ladies and gentlemen, while no single vowel can function as onset or coda, in other words, while all vowels have to be the nuclei, that's the plural of nuclei of syllables. Do you understand? This means that a syllable can exist only with a nucleus. Some syllables may sacrifice onset, some may sacrifice coda. For example, when I say the in English, the definite article the, how many syllables are there? The, وحدة, the. So what do I do here? I have a syllable and I have an onset, which is the, the, and then a nucleus, which is the schwa, the. Do I have a coda? No, I don't have a coda. Do you understand? So in a syllable, the most important element, not just in English, but in all languages, is the coda. That's the central, is the nucleus, which is the most important element. There are situations where a syllable can have a nucleus and a coda, but no onset, like when you have the word at. In at, you have a syllable like this, and then you have a nucleus, which is a, and then a coda, which is t. But do we have an onset? No, we don't have an onset. So syllables can exist without onsets. Syllables can exist without codae, which is the plural of coda. But syllables cannot exist if you don't have a nucleus. Do you understand? Do you understand? Therefore, when we syllabify, when we try to assign, to divide a word into syllables, okay? Let's take words like, so we have this eraser. We have a word like alone. Let's say, anyway, pen, utter, look at this. In syllabifying these, we may find syllables that have an onset, a nucleus, and a coda. We may find a syllable or syllables that may have an onset, a nucleus, but no coda, and that's healthy. We may find a syllable that has a nucleus and a coda, but no onset, and that's healthy. But one thing we can never come across is a situation where you have a syllable just with the onset. Without a coda. That's impossible. Let me say it again. I'm sorry. What we should not expect is a syllable without a nucleus. Nuclei are what makes syllables syllables. They are the essential building blocks of syllables. So let's do it for these. Okay, eraser. Just this is an opportunity to sing. Sing your words, and you will syllabify them in the best way. Just sing. Eraser. Look at this. Eraser. So we have one syllable, and then one syllable. E is one syllable. E is one syllable. It's like this. E. So you have nucleus and you have E. That's all. This syllable is like that. Does it have an onset? No, it does not. Does it have a coda? No, it does not. You may ask the question, why don't we have ir here, sir? But if you sing it, it will not, because that's not nature. It's not natural. If you sing it, it will not give you this pattern. Just to your ear, which is better? Is it eraser or eraser? You see? So we have this unconscious knowledge of syllabification rules in our minds. Now, we have the word alone. He is alone. Better than saying he is al and then o. You see? So we have alone here again. So you have a and then another syllable will start like this. This is a syllable, this is a syllable. Okay? Now, let's take pen. A pen. Now, this is a complete syllable where you have consonant, vowel, consonant. You have an onset, a nucleus, and a coda. How about the word utter? It's what? It's a. Normally, it's utter, but because you have, that's what theories, syllabification theory see. Since this is a geminate, it means you have two here. We say that the geminate belongs to the left syllable and at the same time to the last syllable, to the following syllable. So that we have what? We have at, and then you have ter, like this. And we say that t and t here are tautosyllabic, like this. I mean, this geminate t is tautosyllabic. It means part of it belongs to is the coda of the previous syllable, and the other part is the onset of the next syllable. Maybe this is something maybe we don't cover this. I don't know. But if your question is about this, then I hope I have explained things in a better way, in a good way, in a good enough way. Yes, sometimes you have this. Look. You have something like this, like claim, and then you have strong, and then you have first. These words, even if they have more words than words like put, etc., they are still one syllable. What is the proof? The proof is your ear. If you try to sing something like this, this is my claim, it's one thing to the ear. It's not claim, no. Claim, this is your claim. Okay, claim is one syllable, so it's okay. Strong. If you exercise, you will be strong. It's one word. I mean, one unit, one syllable to the ear. It's just one syllable. First. You are the first, it's just one syllable. So these words are monosyllabic. That is to say, they have one syllable. Now, even if they have one syllable, where is can I ask you this question? In the word claim, where is the nucleus? Because in a syllable, we have to look for the nucleus first. What is the nucleus here? It's A here. A. The diphthong, A. Okay? Strong. Okay, so you have O here is the nucleus, and first is Okay? Now, let's take the word claim. The word claim, okay, you have a syllable like this, and then you have an onset, which is k, and then you have another onset, which is, okay, sorry. This has been treated differently. In fact, so let me adopt maybe the approach that is more widespread. So you have onset here, and this onset you have k and l. And then you have a nucleus, which is A, and then you have a coda, which is m. K, l, this is key. So we say that the word or the syllable claim, or the monosyllabic word claim, has a complex onset. This onset is complex because it involves more than one element. Just as, okay, we have a complex onset, we can have a complex coda. That is to say, a coda can be one consonant, but it can be more than one consonant. Like the word strong. In fact, this is still a complex onset because strong. Look at how I write strong. Look at how I represent strong. So you have a syllable here, the onset here. You have s, and then you have t, and then you have r, and then you have a vowel here, which is the nucleus, str, and then you have something like this, and then you have coda, which is the ng here. As you can see, in the onset, we have three elements here. Let's look at first first. If you pronounce the R, if it's American English, first, which means that you have C, C, C. So, you have consonant, consonant, consonant here. For first here. And then you have here C, C for claim, but in the onset. Strong, you have C, 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 and then vowel. Okay? And so on and so forth. All in all, in syllabification, if it's about the language that you learn, and if it's in the data, then maybe if it's in an exam, the professor will specify the syllable boundary. So you may not have a problem there. All right? Or you can do it yourself. Just try to sing that word, even if it's a strange word, try to sing it so that you can determine syllables. That's all. It does not take more than this. Okay? Nice. So all in all, number one, sing the word to yourself and to the others if you have a beautiful voice. And then you understand that a syllable does not exist or cannot exist if it does not have a nucleus, and this nucleus is most of the time a vowel. And when you have a vowel, when a syllable has a vowel, that vowel necessarily has to be a nucleus. The consonants can be codae or onsets. Okay. So consonant, here we have our consonant clusters, if that's what Asma is talking about. So we have a complex onset is one way of saying that we have a CC cluster. Sometimes you have a CCC cluster, and of course the different languages have different constraints on the existence of these clusters, and this is known as the phonotactics of that language, or the phonotactic constraints of that language. Okay, I hope I have spent enough time on this question. If there's a follow-up, Asma, please let me know. Okay. Hiba Hinawi says, thank you for the fruitful information, Professor. That would certainly help at the day of the exam. Inshallah, I wish you all the best. Okay. Yeah, Ismail Do Al-Ayyam, Duliyam. Good evening, anyway, Ismail. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Yasin Awultit. See, Yasin Awultit, I have a question that is related to grammar, particularly phrases. Tell me, please. Tell me. So, what is the problem? See, Yasin, would you like me to tell you what the phrase is, or do you have a specific problem? I need a follow-up, to this. Maybe you type the message here. Make your question more specific, and I will react to it. Okay, see, Yasin. Picasso. Hello, Picasso. GSM, Prof, could you please provide us with some linguistic arguments in support of the existence of null pronominal pro? Yes. So one of the pieces of advice to support any empty category, be it a trace or a pro, then one of it is what we call the gap argument, in the sense that there is no way you can bring another element to fill in this position. Let's just imagine that you have something like he decided to read the story. Let's take into account this example. He decided to read the story. He decided, the verb to decide here is a transitive verb, and it subcategorizes for a CP. For what? For a complementizer phrase. Obviously, a complementizer phrase, is the maximal projection for anything that we judge to be a phrase. You understand? So wherever there is a verb and there is a subject, then that's a CP. So to read the story by the extended projection principle that says that you cannot have a clause if that clause does not have a subject. Subjectless clauses are not allowed, but we can still have he decided, and then you have an empty category to leave. So here the subject is syntactic. It's not phonologically realized, it's phonologically null. It means it's there syntactically, it does its syntactic job of filling the position of a subject, but it's neither visible nor pronounceable. Okay? Therefore, one argument for the postulation of this empty category is that you cannot, in saying she decided to travel, or he decided to travel, or he decided to read the story, there is no circumstance under which you have a subject before to read the story. For example, we cannot say he decided his brother to read the story. You see, so we cannot. That's an argument. The other argument is that this pro that we have here, in its interpretation, it is interpreted as as being co-referring to its antecedent in a sense. Because when you say, for example, what's the difference between so as to and so that? I always ask this question to my students. What's the difference between so as to and so that? And I'm using this as an argument here, but not until I sip from coffee. Okay. The difference, and we know this at the level of the baccalaureate, you see, or later, a little later. When I say I speak loudly so as to be heard, I speak loudly so as to be heard. Who will speak loudly? Me. Who will be heard? Me. Someone else? No, me. So when you have so as to here, or in order to, here you have the same subject doing the two jobs of speaking loud and being audible. I have to hurry up so as to arrive on time. Who will hurry up? Me. Who will arrive on time? Me. Can we say I hurry up so as my brother to arrive on time? No. That's a good argument, by the way. So you can invoke this difference between so as to and in order to say that with in order to, in order, pro, to, etc. There is an underlying subject there. In order, me, to, etc. So that's represented by a pro. Syntactically, it's active, it's there. And even in terms of its thematic role, and it's still active, it's there. I mean, the case is an empty category is off the hook. It does not submit to case filter. By the way, case filter applies only to noun phrases that are overt. But anyway, so you have this argument again, because you say so as to hear you, speak loud so as to hear you. It's not a good, it's not grammatical to say, Professor, can you speak loudly, please, so as we can hear you. La. Because so as is followed with the to, it's a non-finite clause there. Just imagine that you have, okay. So you know this so as to and in order to. Fine. Okay. Avec so as to and in order to, there are people who may not know this. When you use so as to express purpose or in order to, the subject for the first clause is the same as the subject for the second clause. My brother works very hard so as to succeed. Who will work hard? My brother. Who will succeed? My brother. Just imagine I want to introduce another subject. For example, I speak loudly so that you will hear me. Here I have used that. I speak loudly so that you can hear. Here I have two subjects. علاش? I have two subjects here because I have used that. And that as a complementizer, it's plus finite minus WH. Plus finite. It introduces finite clauses. You understand? So that فاش كندخل داك add في الجملة, that the non-finite in full becomes finite, and therefore I have to place another subject without a problem. I speak loudly so that you can hear me. You here is properly case assigned. علاش? Because you have can hear me, the verb is conjugated. The reason why we cannot say I speak loudly in order to you can hear me is not possible, because you there will violate case filter. علاش it will violate case filter? Because you will have an NP and you have the info that will assign to it nominative case. It's minus tense minus agreement. I hope you understand me in this regard. So that's a very good argument in order to and so that, or لا خليوها هكاك, so as to and so that. They serve as good illustrations of this pronominal, null pronominal pro. Now, when it comes to case assignment, we say that pro is controlled. The case of pro is controlled, because some people can say, well, it violates nominative case. No, it's not subject to case filter. علاش? Because it is in an empty category. It is so and case filter applies only to overt noun phrases, not to covert noun phrases. All right, and you can also talk about C command, for example, the antecedent C commands, the other one, but I don't think you need to go to these details. I think sentences like these could. So number one, the filling of pro by another subject is not possible. Number two, you can invoke the difference between so as to and so that. Two straightforward ways of arguing for this null category. Okay. Yasin Razouk says, good evening, Professor. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you, Yasin Razouk, and thank you for joining us. Okay. Nice. Abdu AN says, hello, Professor. I hope you're doing well. Could you kindly explain arguments for each movement, including WH movement, passivization, and raise-in? Now, let me make things clear when it comes to movements. The first thing that you have to think about when you're thinking about movements is why do sentences undergo? Why do some elements undergo movement? Why do they have to move from one position into another? If this has to do with noun phrases, then what motivates them is the quest for appropriate case assignment. For example, in passive construction, you have a movement from, for example, you have, let me clean the board and then explain. So in NP movement, in noun phrase movement, ladies and gentlemen, in noun phrase movement, the motivation is the quest for appropriate case assignment. NPs move because they need to be assigned nominative case. Why? Either because the noun phrase in question has lost its features, for example, in passive voice, for example, was asked John was asked, and then we have a subject position here, and then we have was asked John. Was asked John. Of course, on the surface level, we do not have this. We have John was asked because we have someone asked John. Now here at deep structure, there is a specification. The reason why we have this is that at deep structure, there is an abstract agentive morpheme or passive morpheme. Agentive morpheme. In different languages, the passive voice, in different languages, the passive voice is expressed morphologically or by means of a particle, by means of a lexical item, or it depends. For example, in Arabic, it is produced by the changing of the vowel quality. Kataba, and then you have kutiba. So a becomes u, and the other a becomes e. You see, kataba, kutiba. So you have this change. You can see it. Okay. In Moroccan Arabic and Amazigh, you have something ktib, you have tiktib. So passivization is morphologically, you have the t, the prefix there. It's the same thing in Amazigh, itwaktib, itwara, itiara. It depends on the dialect that we are using, but in any case, it is t here. Okay, so this is the agentive morpheme or the passive morpheme. In English, it's like nominative case accusative. It's not visible. Mazel, in English, we have this, when it comes to pronouns, you can see me versus I, but the student, whether it's nominative or accusative, it's the student. This is one way of telling you that the passive morpheme here is abstract. Hada plus passive. For example, at deep structure, you have this morpheme that is abstract. It's not realized. It's not visible. What happens, and here you have the word to ask. Yes, we have the word to ask. Next to it is a noun phrase. So by case filter, we have good case assignment here because ask assigns accusative case to John. Okay, nice. So the passive morpheme intervenes because it's here. It's not visible. It's very satanic. It's okay. It's here. It's hidden. What does it do? It comes and absorbs the features that are assigned by the verb to this noun phrase. They are taken by this passive construction, by this passive morpheme. The consequence is that John, if it stays here, it will be caseless because its case is absorbed. What does it have to do? It has to flee this place where it doesn't have it's not appropriately case assigned. So it should move to a place where there is a proper environment for case assignment, and there is no better environment for nominative case assignment than this place here. Why? Because this is I0, we'll let T0, and this is able to assign nominative case. So this gets out of this place and moves to this place. Of course, it sacrifices accusative case, but it has taken nominative case. The important thing is that it does not violate case filter. Okay, so this is one of the motivation for noun phrase movement. What are arguments? What arguments that we can use to justify this? There are many, in fact. So apart from explaining why this movement has taken place, one thing we need to bear in mind is that, okay, the thematic role, the thematic role that this noun phrase is assigned does not change. The verb assigns this a thematic role, somebody who was asked, okay, the one that receives this action of asking, not the one who instigates the action of asking. Whether John is here or here after movement, the thematic interpretation is the same, which means what? Which means that the thematic interpretation of the receiver of the action, which we find here, and John was asked, it means that it was generated here. Okay, its place, normal place is here, and it has just traveled to satisfy the syntactic requirement of case filter. Okay, the other argument, again, is that you can never insert, because you have a trace here, you cannot insert another word here. You cannot say, John was asked his brother. Okay? So this is one way of arguing for these. And the same goes for NP movement in raising constructions. In raising, when you have in sim type verb, as we saw last time, in sim type verb, you have the underlying representation of the deep structure is the verb and then the subject. Seemed John to be happy. Seemed John. This is the way it is generated. But because we have John to be happy, John, seemed, we forget about seemed, you have this structure. John to be happy. Isn't it a violation of case filter? Answer, yes, it is. Why is it a violation of case filter? Because I have John and then to leave. To leave is a non-finite info. How do we know it's a non-finite info? Because it's not conjugated. Minus tense, minus agreement. Can this assign any case? No, it cannot. So John has to leave this place. So seems John to be happy will become John seems to be happy. John will move from its place to the subject position. So seems or seemed, let's say, John to be happy. I have John here. I have to be here. No. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because John here will incur a violation of case filter. How? Because this is non-finite and therefore it cannot assign nominative case to John. What should John do to make our sentence, to save this sentence from ungrammaticality? It has to move here. And once it moves here, it finds that the I0 is activated. All right. So it's there, properly case assigned. And of course, the same thing, we cannot say John seemed his brother to be happy. That's not possible. Okay. For the WH phrase, the WH word moves not for case filter anymore. Case filter, or the quest for case filter, is the characteristic of noun phrase movement, of NP movement. Some would call it DP movement, both are correct. So whenever there is NP movement, المشكل كاين في الcase filter and the fact that the I0, which is non-finite, cannot assign appropriate nominative case or whatever case. Nominative case because I0 assigns nominative case. You see? So that's for NP. The main motivation for NP movement is the quest for case. They search for case. Okay? Because they find themselves born in an environment. They look to the left, they look to the right. To the left, there is nothing. To the right, there is an info, but it's an info that is deactivated. But they need to survive by case. So they have to escape to the place where they should be in the environment where near them, at least to the left, they will have a finite info. And we know that info that is finite is a case assigner as well, apart from being, associated with tense and agreement features. So grosso modo, this is the story of these movements and their motivations. Okay, Gareth Mohammed, thanks, Professor. Welcome. Si Mohammed Bouknifi, so many thanks, dear Professor. You have always been a constant source of inspiration. Barakallahu fik, Si Mohammed. Thank you very much. Shayma Alami, you are thanking me for an explanation that I did not give, because I remember you asked me to talk about the place of articulation, manner of articulation. I promise all I need are at least 3 messages in my inbox, so that I can prioritize it for tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. But Zakaria, Professor, can you please correct with us some previous exams of syntax? I will, that's for sure. I will send you, or I will post some exams on the page so that we can correct them, depending on whether Shayma and her friends will send me that message, because I really want to talk about want to review with students place of articulation and manner of articulation because they find them confusing. All right. Otherwise, so it's down to tomorrow or after tomorrow, Mr. Zakaria. Okay. Si Ayub, ahlan wa sahlan. Thank you, Si Ayub, for this nice word. You are also the best Ayub ever. Thank you very much. Really nice. You're doing a great job too. Thank you so much. Si Bilmaki Mahmoud, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for your efforts. One of the research tools that I am using in my study is a questionnaire. To test its reliability, I piloted it with students, teachers, and researchers. Very good. All the remarks that have been suggested were taken into consideration. So, is it sufficient to rely solely on piloting process, or is it essential to apply statistical tests such as Cronbach? Okay. My answer to your question, Sibyl McKee, is that piloting and Cronbach alpha have different purposes. When you pilot a questionnaire, you are not piloting for the internal consistency of your items. You are piloting because you want to get some feedback. Number one, you need to get some feedback so that your test will be valid and reliable, especially reliable. Why? Some students, like one of my master's students, I talked to her today about her instruments. So when you are a beginning researcher, beginning means you are in the process. Of course, you are when you are in the process of data collection. You generally find yourself over ambitious. You want to do a lot. Your questionnaire is long, and the number of tasks are too many, and we don't realize that we don't put ourselves in the shoes of the ones that will respond. Especially talking about teachers, you're talking about admin, maybe different parties, and even students. Just imagine giving a very a heavy and stuffed questionnaire to a group of students who are preparing for their final exams. And by the way, I advise my students to avoid students in this period because they need to concentrate on their preparation. So just imagine you have this, and you present them with a very long questionnaire that asks them to tick for some questions, and for some other questions to write a word or two. And maybe that's the thing. Sometimes you find 4 or 5 questions asking them to express themselves on why do you think, and that's too much. Okay, and there are other tasks like translation tasks, etc. Why these are good, but while these are good instruments, and the more items you have, the more informative. But I'd rather see a questionnaire with a reasonable number of items than to all answer it sincerely, than to have a questionnaire where the students just start to tick, for example, or to produce anything, or to leave blank on most of the questions. You see? So if there is any benefit in piloting your instruments, your questionnaire, it's this: you get feedback about whether the instructions are clear or not. You get feedback, for example, about whether the students understand those items or not, because sometimes the researcher may be influenced by his or her readings. They present baccalaureate students with terms that even the teacher may not understand, that are theoretically loaded. You see, for example, do you think that I saw this, by the way? Do you think that translanguaging can help? What do you mean? Translanguaging for a student at S1, S2? This is a very theoretically loaded construct. The students need to be addressed in a language that they can understand. If you're looking for data that is that is representative of what the students have in mind. So again, see Bilmaki, you pilot because you want to get feedback about the timing, because sometimes we believe that our task is going to take 15 minutes. Why? Because we are able to do that. A researcher is able to do that. But can a student do that at the level of S1 or S2? Or at baccalaureate level? They will do it, but they probably need to take more time to express themselves, to produce paragraphs. Sometimes they give them writing tasks, write a paragraph about to write a paragraph about something, sorry, you need to give them enough time. So this is the type of feedback that you get. So mainly piloting is more for feedback, and consequent to your administration of the pilot study, consequent to piloting your test, you will take a course of action, like, for example, deleting some items, changing the phrasing of some other items, or sometimes, look at just the face validity of the test. Sometimes you get some feedback like, teacher, I cannot see very well what you have written here because you write in a very small font size because you don't want to to print out an extra paper, you condense everything. Now, all this feedback is good, is good when you pilot your instruments. But this does not relieve you, and this is not rid you of the requirement that you have to test the consistency of your items. Here we come to another issue. You see, we come to another issue. My direct answer is that you have to do both. Why? Because the internal consistency of items, which is done by Cronbach alpha, the test of reliability that you talked about, even if you get very positive feedback based on your pilot study, does this mean that your items are consistent? No, that's another machine that you need to consult, apart from the machine of piloting. The other machine is done numerically by the computer, and this reliability test, especially Cronbach alpha, its job is just to tell you whether the items that you use for a given variable, because in your questionnaire you may have a lot of variables represented, but if you have one variable in a question, like anxiety, for example, you cannot go to the student and ask him or her the question as to whether you are anxious or not. If she says yes or he says yes, and you report that, then that's very subjective, and that's not scientific at all. Why? Because anxiety is a psychological variable, and psychological variables are latent variables that you need to externalize by asking a number of questions, and you infer, their characteristics based on their answers. But this has to do by means of a lot of items. Anxiety, for example, question 1, I feel I panic a lot before I raise my hand to give an answer. In my class, I wish when the teacher looks in my direction, I believe I think or anyway I fear him pointing to me in order to answer. When the teacher asks me to go to the board, I feel something. I am afraid that the students will make fun of me when I produce an answer. All these elements are indications of anxiety. You see, so there needs to be this kind. So if you have, let's say, 6 questions about anxiety, 6 questions. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, question 6. And you believe, for you as a researcher, from question 1 to question 6, I will get information about anxiety. Is it enough? Yes, you pilot your study, you get maybe to phrase these items, maybe reduce them, maybe think of allowing for more minutes later on, etc. But there is another stage you need to go through. It's whether these items from 1 to 6 are consistent or not consistent. What is consistent? Consistent here means, do they test the variable in question or not? Do they contribute actively to the testing of this variable or not? How can I know? It's by taking them to Cronbach alpha. You run this statistical measure of Cronbach alpha, and it tells you the percentages. Usually when it's 0.70 onwards, they are reliable. Otherwise, there is a possibility of deleting the item, so that you can delete the item, and instead of 5 items for this variable, of 6 items, you will have just 5 or just 4. Better to have 4 than to have 6 if these 6 variables are not reliable. Okay, so my answer to Sid McKee is that you need to do both. Okay, All right. Thank you, C. Bilmeki. I hope you will react to this or give a follow-up to this, to my answer to your question. Okay. CSE. Professor, do you think it is more beneficial to focus on errors systematically, or should teaching prioritize fluency over accuracy in the initial stages of language learning? Much appreciated. CSE Razouq, you are asking a very important question that has driven a wedge in the field of English language pedagogy, language pedagogy in general, and English language pedagogy in particular. Now, it's a trade-off. There is a trade-off between the two approaches. One approach, I wouldn't advise personally teachers to do it. One approach is to stop the student every time he or she makes a mistake, interrupt him or her, and provide him with a prompt or a recast. Prompt means, something like what? That's a prompt, so that the student will think of correcting his mistake or her mistake. A recast, for example, he says, I have drinked. The recast means we recast this error to him. The teacher will say, drinked? No, not drinked, I mean drunk or drank or whatever. So this approach may work, but I think that what you gain is this awareness the student may have over time, but what you will lose is the fact that the student will evolve into an anxious student who is always concerned with this possibility of making a mistake, and therefore of being blocked. So maybe the solution is an in-between approach where you allow the student to talk, as I do. Hopefully, my students should not be like this. Okay. Okay. So I often do this. In fact, I leave the student until he or she finishes, and either sometimes I make fun of the situation. The student likes it a lot. So you take the error before you move to the next point. Hey, you said it like that. Do we say it like this or not? Etc. So I think this way, after the student has expressed himself or herself, especially if you are negotiating something, if you are discussing an idea that is not immediately relevant to the grammar point. But if it is a grammar point, if it's a grammar exercise, and instead of saying drank or drunk, the student says drink, yeah, you need to stop him on the spot, because the objective is grammar at this point. But if you are involved in discussion or in a role play or in presentation, you take those errors and leave them until the end, and then remind the student of the mistakes. And maybe sometimes I do that, say 3 times. I say to the student, pronounce it 3 times, and this creates a funny situation, especially with the level of S1, S2, where you have these mistakes, some of these mistakes, of course. Okay, Yasin Arzouq, see Yasin. Yes, that's a very good question, and I really liked it. I appreciate the fact that you have drawn attention to it. Okay, Shof, an advice for teachers and for the would-be teachers. Try not to put students off. Try not to upset them. Try not to ignore them. Try not to say that, well, there were teachers, I heard some stories like that, over my history as a student, as a teacher. Some teachers say to students that your place is not here. You'd better go and work and they mention some jobs. All jobs are nice, but it's not good to tell this to students. That kills his motivation altogether. So teachers are not there to say these things to students. Teachers are there to help, to facilitate the learning process. One way of doing this maybe is to leave things, not blame. You leave the correction until maybe after that immediate task is over, and the student, you will save face to the student. Number one, save his or her face, because if you tell him off sometimes angrily, and these are very bad practices. It's not good at all to blame someone and to tell him in the face, or to start laughing in a hysterical way. No, that's not the approach, of course. So Yasin, thank you very much, okay, for this question. Yes, Muhammad or Med T says the peak. The peak means the onset, so the nucleus when you're talking about the syllable. Noel, well, please, Professor, what do you mean by linear equation rules in regression analysis? These are things that I will not discuss for the moment because I myself, you see, need enough reading about that. My knowledge is not that of a statistician. I'm not a statistician, but for regression analysis. Noel, you were absent today, by the way. Okay, so for regression, a regression is a model that tests causality. This is unlike correlation. So if there is any difference, there's one difference between correlation and regression. It's the fact that the former tests relations, and the latter tests, impact and causality. X causes Y. In correlation, we cannot say X causes Y. We say X is related to Y. Okay, not causes Y. In regression, we have this. We have the possibility of talking about causation. X causes Y. Now, this again, how do we know whether we are going to use regression or correlation? Again, I will bring you back to your hypotheses. This will heavily depend on the way you phrase your hypotheses and therefore your objectives. This is the reason why when any student asks me what statistical measure I should run, I always say, please bring me your objectives and your research questions, and then we will see. Okay, because sometimes even the way you phrase, just the phrasing of the research question will lead you here or there. But now, in linear regression, we have a three-way interpretation of the tables that the SPSS generates. You have the first table, which is called the model summary, where you go directly to the slot called adjusted R square. That adjusted R square will most often give you point plus 2 digits or 3. So because we take only 2 digits after the decimal, for example, if it's 37, that's the number of lakhs that I have here. If the adjusted R square is 0.37, it means that 37% of the changes that you see in the dependent variables are caused by the independent variable. And now it's one way of saying that we have this capacity of establishing a cause-effect relation between the two variables. And then you move to the second table, which is the table of ANOVA, not the ANOVA that we have seen for comparison. This is just the second step in the interpretation of regression. And this ANOVA, model has a significance value where you will tell whether this adjusted R square of 37%, okay, is significant or not. It means whether the impact is real or not real. And in case you have more than two factors, more than one factor, two factors, for example, you go to coefficients where you isolate the exact variables. For example, just this evening, this late afternoon with the master's group, with your classmates, we gave this example of attitudes towards French, attitudes towards English, and the impact they may have on motivation. Okay, so because variables may be on an equal footing, but in regression, we have to isolate one to see that this can have an impact on that. At the beginning, it was motivation that had an impact on attitude, but later on we swapped. But just imagine that we have variable 1, variable 2, and their impact on variable 3. So variable 1, variable 2, and the impact on variable 3. In the third table, the table of coefficients, you have a clear statement of which variable is the one that causes the change or causes the impact by looking at the significance level. Okay, this is what we did successfully. Okay, this afternoon in an example in the class. Okay, all right. So Noel, I hope that I have reacted to your question in pragmatic terms, because this is what you expect in the exam rather than what you mentioned in your question. See Yusuf Li'alawi. Excuse me, Professor, I understand that predictability is one of the arguments used to determine the underlying phoneme in phonology in data analysis. However, I'm not sure about the second argument. Well, see Yusuf Li'alawi is asking this question about the criteria for, you probably mean the criteria, not the argument. Well, but there might be a formulation to this sentence where we can use the word argument itself. But anyway, let me sip from this bottle and then carry on. Okay. The issue here is the issue of the underlying representation in phonological analysis. Well, sometimes it's clear because when you have sometimes you have a rule where x is realized as y in this environment and z elsewhere. This is clear, isn't it? So elsewhere means the one that is elsewhere, the version that you find elsewhere, it means it has a wider distribution, is the one that qualifies for the underlying representation. So in order to answer this question as to which is the underlying representation, you choose the one that you specify as elsewhere. Okay. Now, just in case, for example, both allophones, both realizations are associated with an environment. That is to say, neither of them is elsewhere. For instance, one of them occurs syllable initially and the other occurs syllable finally. So if we say that the one that occurs syllable initially is the underlying representation, the one that occurs syllable finally, we say, no, I am the underlying representation. You understand? It means that that we do not specify like that, underlying representations. So in the absence of the elsewhere condition or the elsewhere, then we have to look for other criteria. One of which is the environment, the complexity of the environment. Let's imagine that we have something like this. Okay, so you have a brace and it's realized as X here, and then you have word finally. Okay, that's the word boundary, by the way. For a syllable, we use this. For the word, we use this. But it's realized as Z. Okay, look at this before a consonant, which is minus voiced. A consonant minus voiced. And then you have minus delayed release. Minus voiced, minus delayed release. Which is more complex here when we compare this environment and this environment? Obviously, it's the second. Why? Because you have a specification of consonant, and more than that, you have a specification of the features. Okay, so it would seem that, okay, this one here is simpler because you just say word boundary without specifying the type of consonant. You don't go into the detail. Word finally, that's fine. Not, for example, word finally before, before a consonant, which is, I don't know. So here, for example, you have two rules. One of them tends to be or seems to be more straightforward than another. So the one that is complex is unlikely to be the underlying representation. This one is likely to be the underlying representation. Okay, another example, just for you to know about this complexity of the rule. So example number 2, just imagine you have a phoneme, I don't know, a phoneme that is realized as X. Okay, look at this. So you have syllable finally, you see, and another realization, which is Y, between a vowel, which is what? A vowel which is minus back, all right? And, for example, a vowel, or let's say a consonant, for example, which is, let's say, plus strident, let's say. Strident. Just as a matter of exemplification. We have two environments here. Which one is simpler? It's this one. Why? Because directly, syllable initially. Oh, sorry, syllable finally. But here now you have between this, and each one is specified. This is more complex. So this is what we mean by the criterion of complexity. So the sound that is realized in a complex environment, let's say in a more complex environment compared to its competitor, is the one that is the allophone. The one that has a simpler distribution, like the one you can see here, is the one that can qualify as an underlying representation. And if both of them are complex or both of them are simple, we have other criteria. One of them is whether the sound in question is marked or unmarked. Let me give you an example. Let's say if you have, for example, okay, let's say you have an underlying representation, and then you have a realization. Let's give this sound like a. Let's say a before a consonant that is, for example, I don't know, that is plus anterior. Okay. And you have U. U, that's the French vowel. It's not I, it's U. That is realized, okay, I forgot this. That is realized, before a consonant minus anterior. So one of them is before a consonant which is plus anterior, and the other is before a consonant which is minus anterior. An example, this is just an example. Which one would go for the underlying representation? The sound which is unmarked. In linguistics, the word unmarked means the one that is most natural. هذيك هو unmarked. The one that is usual is the one that is unmarked. So we go to the, so here in this case, this is more likely to be the underlying representation on the basis of markedness, because this is more marked. I'm sorry, this is unmarked or less marked or unmarked. This one is difficult to pronounce maybe by some speakers, and it exists rarely in languages compared to a. Therefore, this is the one that is derived. This is the one that is the allophone. So the underlying representation here would be this. And of course, we can go to child language acquisition and see which one comes first, which one comes second, it comes later, etc. See, Alawi, I hope I have answered your question. Okay, well, let's move on to Saeed. See, Saeed Awldid, in the sentence, she carried a bag filled with vibrant, fleshy, picked flowers. What is the grammatical function of with vibrant, fleshy flowers? Is it an adjective phrase? No. With vibrant, no. With that's the category. The category is that it's a prepositional phrase. Okay, with vibrant, fleshy flowers, and you may have more words after see Yasin. So this is a prepositional phrase in its category. The category is a prepositional phrase. With a vibrant, etc., that should be some complement to the word field, and it's related to field. Okay, so yeah, this is the idea. So you have to distinguish, ladies and gentlemen. This is maybe an S3 student, I guess. In S3, you have to know about the category, the function, and the relation. Maybe relation, no, but at least category and function. If the professor asks you to the relation, then it's related to what? Okay, that's the answer. Look, the category, so that you can understand, I don't know if I have S3 students here, but the category is the type of word or group of words you have if you take them out of this context. The function is what do they do there. Those of you who don't know about the difference between category and function. For example, a very simple example, and then we can reserve another session on that because 2 hours have elapsed. And if there are previous exams, I'd rather receive them in the message so that we can work on them without any problem. So let me just give you an example for this category and function thing. Let's very simple example. You have this student. If you take the student from this sentence, what you have is just this student, regardless of what it does. And the category is you take it outside of its context. You cut it from the sentence. You don't read it within the sentence. You isolate it. That's category. So this student is a noun phrase. The function will depend on where you put this in a sentence. I invited the student. The category is the student, but the function is that it's what? It's a direct object. When I have this student and you say, this student passed the exam, here the same category, but the function is that it's a subject of the sentence. So this is the distinction between category and function. And I promise, because a student of mine sent me an exam, but she sent me an exam with a key. I cannot understand. That's why I'll message her. Maybe she sent it by mistake. So it's worthless to talk about it if there is, unless to explain why. We'll see to this later on. Okay, good. Yassine, I would appreciate if you could help me. I actually disagreed with my professor about the phrases function. No, whatever the professor says is supposed to be right. He has or she has, it depends. I don't know where you study and don't know who teaches you, and please don't mention any name here. Okay, but look, my friends, it's good to disagree. Disagree, yes. Disagree because you don't understand, yes. No problem. Disagree. So many students disagree with me, but look, you really need to look for. Maybe you can have a discussion with him or her, and you need to find a way. Either ask people from different groups whether they have had the same same exercise or not, and check that with your friends, etc. So I don't know what you said to your professor in that regard. So she carried a bag filled with vibrant, fleshy, baked flowers. So and then you are asking me, with the vibrant, with is a prepositional phrase. You see, it's a prepositional phrase because you have with. Unless I am wrong, let me know. Okay, good. So let's move on. And yeah, of course, I will get back to the previous exams, and we can discuss these things without any problem. Okay, with vibrant, fleshy, that should be a prepositional phrase in its category. Function, it can be a complement or it can be something else. Complement, I guess, in this case. Filled with. Okay. All right. Asma Sadiq says, thank you so much. Actually, I want to know syllable rules like heavy, super heavy, rules like yes, okay. Now for stress, a heavy syllable would be, is that, I don't think that they do these things at the level of S5. Asma, I don't know if you are an S5 student or a master's student, but anyway, a heavy syllable is something like, so this is a light syllable. A CV is a light syllable. A V, just a V, is a light syllable. V and then C is also a light syllable. A heavy syllable would be something that has CCV or C or sorry CVCC. A super heavy would be to add when you have three consonants. Okay, and this, of course, as you said rightly, can determine stress rules and other phenomena in language. You see, these heavy syllables. I don't know if you are an S5 student, because I can invite you to read the nonlinear treatment of these syllables, because these are prosodic features that have been accounted for using a number of framework. From 1967, people have started with Goldsmith, the nonlinear, who introduced this nonlinear framework. Syllable theory has undergone a lot of evolution, and even in optimality theory, they are making use of these developments to account for the behavior of syllables and the consequences that it can have. For example, on pronunciation, can have on morphology, on phonology, and so on and so forth. Okay, so yeah, if I understood your message very well here, because I really need to know how advanced you intend to be when it comes to these things. And I'm really sorry if I start talking on set and nucleus and coda, because I thought that you are struggling with syllable structure. Okay. Syllable weight is a theory developed by Elizabeth Selkirk, who talked, there were a lot of concepts introduced, like the weight by position, and it's really advanced. I did not pursue this myself. The syllable theory has really undergone a lot of refinements, and people have gone very far in. So the people went even beyond the syllable, like treating the foot of the syllable, for example, 2 feet, and and the prosodic word. You have these concepts that are really causing a headache, of course. But I really don't know if you cover these things at the level of S5. Okay, so Mohammed Zrak, unless the focus is grammar, it may turn the student into a monitor overuser. If not reluctant to participate, this can have nefarious consequences on the psyche of the student. I agree with you. Thank you. With regard to Mustafa says, with regard to the question on errors, I want to add that there are two approaches. One is the top 10, one size fits all approach, and the other is a let it pass by approach. وابتغي من بين ذلك سبيلا. You see, so it's good to do things in moderation. If you adopt this, let it go, and this will give us students who believe that mistakes are not or should not be taken into account, because there are even students who time and again make the point that we are at university and we should not, for example, focus on minute details like the S and like what is important is communication. It's not what is important is communication. I'm sorry. And the people who inculcated these ideas in the minds of students are simply wrong. They have to revise they have to revisit this approach. You see, the people misunderstood the communicative approach. They thought that the communicative approach is there only because students have to speak regardless of whether they make mistakes or not. And no, of course not. So let it go 100%. No. What is interesting is that I have given him the answer, but he did not give me the grade. No, this is an academic context, and we are all constrained by certain rules that we have to abide by for academic English. Okay, so I think being in the middle is always a good thing. The way I talked about is one possibility. I'm not saying that it's the perfect way of doing it, but it's good to wait until the student has expressed himself or herself, and then finish the point and say, Ajita, you said this and this and this, and you may turn this into a funny situation. You may give a 1 minute exercise on this until you are sure that the mistake is on the way to suppression. Thank you, Si Mustafa, for this contribution. That is, instead of correcting learner's language, that should conform to the native speaker's model. Why don't let them speak and let communication take place, but to a very, very limited extent? Si Mustafa, I wouldn't agree with just letting go like that. All right, okay. So, شنو عندنا عند سي مصطفى? I think after سي مصطفى. Okay. Si Mustafa is having as a starting point the topic of his thesis, because that's why we distinguish between world English and world Englishes in academia. Englishes are to be left aside. We might be discussed only at the theoretical level, as you did, Si Mustafa. But we are constrained. I'm really sorry, because there will be recruitment for those of you who finish their studies, doctorate or even license. Some of them will go, to take interviews, whether they will be teaching at high school, or junior high school, or private or public. You always need to go through this interview, and you might be asked questions targeting your accuracy. And if you say, well, just let it go, just what is important is communication, people wouldn't or don't want to see their children, stressing the fact that a deviation is okay. You see, so it's really nice. It's good to talk to constrain these ideas that we need to that what is important is communication. No, at the university we do not study English only because we want to make our students speak with native speakers and communicate with native speakers or chat. No, that's not the purpose. It's academic for academic purposes. And even native speakers have to get trained on how to write academic English, all right? Mr. Mustafa. أهلا سي عبد العزيز زهري. Oh, that's really nice. Si Abdul Aziz was my classmate, and now he's doing great. He's a professor, a higher education professor, a very good researcher, great researcher, in fact, a very nice friend, very helpful. Thank you so much, Si Abdul Aziz, for joining us and for placing that comment. Si Abdul Aziz was my classmate in the master's program, in the DESA program, and together with a number of very good friends. Okay, thank you, Si Aziz, for placing your comment and for dropping by. Thank you. Nawal L says, thank you so much for this clarification. Much appreciated. Marhaba Nawal, thank you. Okay, Mustafa, hello, Professor Abdelaziz Zuhri. It's nice to see you. Yes, we will meet soon in Kinitra because there will be a thesis defense. So, Mustafa, if you are nearby, join us. Picasso GSM says, Prof, if we have an adjective modifying another adjective and the whole adjective phrase modifies a noun, how can we represent it? Now, if an adjective can modify an adjective, unlikely. How can you have an adjective modifying another adjective? Is it, for example, like saying a tall, maybe a tall, I don't know, a tall brown, not brown, blonde, the tall blonde student, etc. Tall blonde. No, we don't have a situation here where an adjective is modifying another adjective. What we actually have are two adjectives, and we may have more, by the way, that modify the noun phrase. Okay, so adjective modify another adjective, and the whole adjective phrase modifies the noun phrase. So that's your question, basically. So if you have these series of adjectives, see Picasso GSM, it doesn't mean that one adjective modifies its neighbor. It only means, unless you have a concrete example that has hit me, but it's unlikely. So we have the first adjective, the second adjective, and possibly the third adjective, all modifying the noun. And here you have this famous rule of creating a copy because they are adjuncts. So in a noun phrase, the adjective is an adjunct. So here, instead of saying that the first adjective modifies the second adjective and so on and so forth, you need how to represent them like this, okay? Because you are looking for a solution. Okay, so we have an n double bar. All right, you have a sort of determiner here. Let's imagine that you have tall, blonde, intelligent lady, let's say. So we have tall, blonde, intelligent, tall, blonde, intelligent, three adjectives, which means that we have three adjuncts, which means that we have three copies of the n bar. Let's do it. So we have tall, sorry. Okay. So this is the first adjunct, tall. This is for blonde. This is for hardworking. And this is the original n bar. Okay? So you have adjective phrase, adjective bar, adjective, so adjective double bar, adjective zero, tall. Here the same thing, adjective double bar, adjective zero, blonde. Adjective bar, adjective double bar, adjective zero, hardworking. And then you have N0, for example, student. This is how you represent them. Picasso, GSM. Okay. So I react to this JSM. Let me know if I have answered your question correctly. Not correctly, it's correct. But is it this that you were looking for? Nathalie Leblanc says, could you please explain the fact that in minimalist program, the complexity of human language is only apparent? Well, this is an epistemological question, actually. So in the what happens, minimalism came with one major purpose. It's to reduce the acquisition burden of human language. Human language is marked by a very high level of complexity. And in order to model it, people, especially in the early version or during the early version of generativism, transformation generativism, making use of X-bar theory, government and binding theory, tried to model this complexity. In fact, they were professing this, complexity by saying that human language is so complex and therefore modeling it should be equally complex. And this is the reason why, for example, people talk about examples like long distance WH movements. For example, a WH movement that is generated maybe at the end of a long sentence has to come to the to the highermost CP specifier in quest for the plus WH feature. It should not come directly, it should come successive cyclically. You see? So this is one example of the complexity characterizing human language. Concepts like subjacency, and other, abstract concepts and abstract rules that take place. Of course, in phonology, we have the same thing, by the way. Phonology, we have the same thing. You have some 7 or 8 rules to derive that are ordered in some feeding order. You have counter feed. You have all these things in order to generate an output that corresponds to natural, to the attested output in a given language. This idea of complexity, I agree with you, Nathalie Leblanc, was dispensed with at a given moment in time. Why? Because they found out, researchers, syntacticians especially, because we're talking about syntax here, realized that there is a lot of theorizing, okay, but a lot of also recalcitrant data that is not accounted for. And in 1995, Chomsky came up with this framework of minimalism. Minimalism means what? Means that, there are movements in syntax, but not in the complex way as X-bar theory, governed by binding theory. You see? Movements are minimal. Everything is minimal. Operations are minimal. And this, according to minimalism, reflects of course, the complexity of the human mind, but it's one way of saying, of sending this direct message that the human mind is not as complex as it is often imagined. Here are solutions. My evaluation of this, my personal view, it's not evaluation, I'm not in a position to evaluate, but it's just that people have, have been looking for descriptive devices that would map the syntactic, the language processes. Okay, of course. So that the complexity of human language is apparent. Yes, that's an assumption that is assumed in minimalism, and it's one way of saying that. That language is not as complex as it is imagined. Here is why, because we have found a descriptive device, etc. But let's not forget the idea that Nathalie Leblanc, other frameworks came after. For example, optimality theory has revolutionized the field, and it called into question a number of assumptions of minimalism. One of these assumptions is that, or one of these criticisms is that minimalism still believes in this complexity. Why would you believe that there is an underlying structure and a surface structure? Why would you believe, for example, that you have rules to apply and that you have abstract representations? No, language is far simpler than this. All that we have is a surface output. We don't, in optimality theory, for example, there is no cyclicity in rule application, and there is no such thing as underlying representation in surface form. We have input and output. Input means it's not abstract, it's just a concatenation, for example, if it's about morphemes or sentence, and then you have the candidates, and one of them wins. So these are, this is how science develops, of course. This is how science develops. Now, even in certain homes, if you compare the homes of the Moroccan homes in the 60s and 70s, if you talk to them about Salon Rumi, people would say, no, I would like to have this, room or the whole of the house, which is decorated in this and that way. But now people are becoming more and more minimalist, so that the tradition has also followed suit. So this is what happens in the development of sciences. You see? And this applies. Look at the computer a long time ago and look at the computer now. This idea of minimalism is not just in linguistics. This is how human thinking develops. Okay? So thank you, Natalie, for that. A master student. So you are a master student. So I detected that, Asma. All right? Good. So initially, I'm sorry, I apologize, but that's good for the S5ers that we have here. Perhaps they want to know something about syllable structure. So you asked a question that is advanced, and I ended up talking about onset, nucleus, and coda. So my apologies. Tariq Bouakal, what about the diagram? I think you mentioned about the diagram. Wait a minute. Tariq Bouakal, what about the diagram? I cannot, and I don't understand this question. What about the diagram? Would you like to articulate a question that is clear, or is it perhaps a reaction to something I was saying? Tariq, please make your question, clearer, because I lost track of what we're talking about. Yassine, indeed, professor, it is P. But what is the function of the phrase within the sentence? Is it an adjective phrase modifying the noun bag, or is it an adverb phrase modifying the adjective filled? أعطيني لفظ عفك. Okay. What is the function of the phrase within the sentence? Is it an adjective phrase modifying the noun bag? A bag filled with modified. Okay, so I need the sentence, please. I'm really lost in this. Okay. Mustafa Murshid, the E in ALT should be reconceptualized. Sorry, Mustafa Murshid, you are making me laugh because you seem to be very influenced by this literature that you have. The E in ALT should be reconceptualized. Some scholars, example, Galloway roles, etc., are calling for a movement away from ELT to GLT, Global English's Language Teaching. I'm afraid this is at the theoretical level. Maybe this has to do with maybe studies of identity, maybe motivation, native speakerism, perhaps. But for to talk about ELT, to teach ELT, by means of varieties of English other than the standard. Remember that we are in an academic context, and this is just a question mark. I'm not saying that this should be the case, but okay. Nice. Sorry, Yasin, I discussed this with my. Okay, we'll talk about that. See, Bill McKee. I discussed this with my professor after the session last week, and she said you would email me. Until now, I said no answer. You see that this is an exam period, and it's a period where you have. If I just turn the camera, I will show you a pile of theses that I have to read, and that need to be defended very soon. We are not. Don't think that that we are at ease, and there is a lot of work behind. Believe me. So it may be that your professor is so busy with these things, and I'm sure she will or he will answer later on. Okay. Okay, that I have already collected and analyzed the data. Civil McKee. Steve McKee says, at first I thought it would be enough to rely on piloting, but based on your accurate response, I am now convinced that I need to use reliability tests. Yes, please do that. Go ahead. Go ahead. What should I do? What should I do now? Knowing that what? Knowing that, please, what should I do now? Knowing that I have already collected and analyzed the data. Thank you so much. Oh, one thing you can do is I don't know if you are able to use SPSS or someone helps you, just go back to your data, open it, and go to analysis, and then go to scales, and then you have reliability analysis. In reliability analysis, you will receive, or a window will open that asks you to choose the variables you want to test, and then you choose the variables that pertain to each variable. For example, Atlantic motivation, question 1 to 6. Enter those questions and see what index you will have. Okay. So you need to have an alpha. The alpha value should be from 70 on. Atlantic 0.70 on. If it gives you lower than 70, maybe 65 or something, you have the possibility of deleting an item so that it will increase. Okay, but anyway, it's necessary because see, Bill McKee, you are likely to be asked this question, honestly. So do the job first and see what it gives you. You never know. There are chances for reliability to be high, and this will call for a celebration. Okay. Picasso GSM, you are welcome. Nathalie Leblanc, thank you, Professor. Your ability to break down complex concepts and present them in engaging. Are you sure of what you are saying? Sometimes I have the impression that I complicate life rather than explaining. Okay, thank you, Nathalie. Thank you. It's really kind of you to write these encouraging comments. Okay, Yassine says she carried a bag filled with vibrant. No. The relation here is the modification. The modification is for the adjective, because the bag is modified by filled with vibrant, freshly picked flowers. All this filled included if you want to modify bag. But the other one, with, etc., it's part of filled, so it modifies filled. Safi, قضي الأمر سياسي. Okay, Natalie, I am honored to have had the privilege of being your student. I'm really happy you are saying this. Natalie Leblanc, especially after you revealed your identity. We know now who you are, and we know that you are not of a French nationality. So this is nice. Thank you very much, Natalie, and similar set of gratitude goes to all the students who who say these good words about me, the encouraging words. I know that it comes from the heart. I know they are saying this sincerely. They are saying this in earnest. So really, thanks, Mohammed. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sorry the network is not good here. I couldn't hear your answer anyway. World English is just a field I worked on at the MA and doctoral level. I myself don't agree with. Yeah, for obvious reasons. Yeah, as an area of research, yes. But see, Mustafa, just imagine that. Not imagine, but know that, for example, in the US, for example, there are a number of varieties. There are universities that receive international citizens, including citizens from English-speaking countries. These speakers, including the Americans, have to take a placement test to see if they are good writers of academic English or not. So why should we, go the other way by stultifying this, the notion of ELT? The E in ELT should be the G, maybe, but maybe for identity reasons, maybe also for look, maybe also for naturalistic second language acquisition, perhaps in a non-formal context, perhaps. But here we are bound by the constraints of academia, and we have to use a language that is called CULLED, that is well sieved, and that is not contaminated with forms that are not formal and that are not standard. Okay. So Mustafa, I know I'm looking forward to reading your thesis actually. So I hope I will once there is a final version. I would like to get. I'm eager to know. And myself, I've been interested in similar topics. On occasions I read papers and studies related to that. All right. Tariq says, what about the tree diagram in representing phrases? How can we use the tree diagram to clarify syntactic ambiguity? See, Tariq, well, a tree diagram, it's very easy, tree diagram. A tree diagram, بالحق, a tree diagram that follows X bar theory. I don't know whether you are an S5 student asking me to show you how to represent a tree diagram, a sentence in a tree diagram. If this is the case, then I regret, not being able to teach you how to do a tree diagram. My students in the class I teach, once you give them a sentence, they do it in a very accurate way. But Tariq, I'm afraid. Okay, so what about the tree diagram in representing phrases? And how can we use the tree diagram to clarify syntactic ambiguity? Yes, okay. Now I got very good. Syntactic ambiguity. Syntactic ambiguity can be shown in the different representations that each reading. So we have one sentence. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah. For example, I congratulated the man in the classroom. You see, sometimes spontaneity can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Okay, I do that Picasso. All right. So, by the way, that's an exam maybe that was given last year. I congratulated the man in the classroom. This is a good example of an ambiguous sentence because this sentence has two interpretations, two readings. Situation one or interpretation one is that the man, when the man was in the classroom, I met him there inside the classroom and I said, congratulations. Okay. Reading according to this interpretation, the man was congratulated while he was in the classroom. And the question is, where did you congratulate the man? I congratulated him in the classroom. Okay. Now, interpretation number 2 is, I congratulated the man. Which man did you congratulate? I congratulated the man in the classroom, not the one in the, in the yard. So here in the classroom is not necessarily where I congratulated him. I congratulated the man who is now in the classroom. I congratulated him yesterday in the yard or in the street or in the parking or whatever. So this is an example of an ambiguous sentence. Now, a tree diagram representation of this will show whether we can represent the first reading and the second reading differently. Okay? So we have, I congratulated the man. Look at this. Just to go through these things quickly, just to show to you how we can represent it. So you have, I congratulated the man. You have this. You have the V double bar here. Okay, V double bar, let's say. Okay, let's just focus on this. Congratulated the man in the classroom. You forget about I, so we don't have a CP. We have directly VP for expository reasons. Okay, so V double bar. I have, look at this, please. V bar, V0. Congratulated. And then you have the man here, N double bar, the man. And then you have an adjunct here in the classroom. In the classroom is a P double bar, so you have in, and then you have P, sorry. Anyway, it's in the classroom. خلينا من le détail d'abord, okay? So in the classroom, you have a P double bar here in the classroom. Hi. Look at this, please. So in the classroom here, in the classroom here, modifies the verb to congratulate, which means that I congratulated the man. Where did you congratulate him? I congratulated him in the classroom. As you can see in the classroom here, relates to the V bar here. So it's part of the verb. So this modifies the verb to congratulate. This tells me where I congratulated the man. So that's the first interpretation for this ambiguous sentence. Now, the second reading is that I congratulated the man. Which man? The one who is in the classroom, not the one who is outside, for example. So we have something like this. I congratulated the man. So you have V double bar, okay, and then you have, okay, V bar, V0 congratulated, okay. Look at this. Do I have an adjunct here? No. Look at this. Who did I congratulate? The man. Okay. So you have determiner, the, and then you have here for in the classroom, because it's an adjunct. Which man? The man who is in the classroom. Remember, please, when you have a relative clause, who, which, etc., even if you don't have the WH phrase like who or which, مثلا the man who is in the classroom or the man in the classroom, these are adjuncts when it comes to their relation with the noun. So the man in the classroom, it means the man who is in the classroom. So here you have the, and then you have another adverb. علاش؟ لأن هذه in the classroom is an adjunct. هنا حتى هي an adjunct. بالحق هذه adjunct ديال الفعل ديال الverb It means the question is where did you congratulate him? هي خارجة من الفي بار. هنا لا. هنا la question ماشي where did you congratulate him? Which teacher did you congratulate? The teacher in the classroom. دونك هنايا غتكون عندي N0 the man ولا teacher بحال bon the man the teacher in the classroom كتولي هي هذه in the classroom. شوفوا لي in the classroom هنايا هي خارجه من n bar c'est-à-dire هي خدامه في وسط NP. It's a modifier in NP. That's why the adjunct should relate to the NP. It's much what people do at the level of S3. هنا لا. هنا in the classroom it's the answer so we have two different questions here. I congratulated the man in the classroom can have two questions. Where did you congratulate the man? لا représentation ديالها هي هذه. And which man did you congratulate? A representation ديالها هي هذه. I hope things are clear now. Okay. An extremely cold glass of water. An extremely cold glass of water. Yes, let's do it. An extremely cold glass of water. So you have an N double bar. Okay, an N double bar. And then you have the determiner. As she said, yeah, determiner N. Now let's stop. Do I have adjunct here? Yes, I do, because you have N, and then you have extremely cold is the adjective phrase, extremely cold. And then you have glass, which is the head, and glass of water is the complement. I repeat. An extremely cold glass of water, you have the following. The whole thing is a noun phrase. That's رقم واحد. Does it have a determiner? Yes, it does. يا سهل. Now, is there an adjunct? The answer is yes. علاش? Because I have an adjective phrase here. Extremely cold. It's not an adverb phrase, it's an adjective phrase. Inside the adjective phrase, you have the head, which is cold, the adjective 0, and extremely is the adjunct of this adjective phrase. علاش? Because it tells us about the degrees of coldness. Is it mildly cold? Is it moderately cold? Is it very cold? You see? Good. So we end up here with one adjunct to the NP, and this adjunct اللي هو adjective phrase itself and the adjunct الداخل ديالها. And then we have glass, which is the head, that is to say the N0, and of water is its complement. Let's try it here. So we have this for extremely cold, hit adjunct. Because you have an adjunct, this is just a copy. This is the original. And then we have here glass of water. Here an extremely cold. Extremely cold is the adjective double bar. Does this adjective double bar have an adjunct? Yes, اللي هي extremely اللي هي adverb phrase. It's the adjunct ديال هذا الادجكتيف هذه. So I write adjective bar هذه pour l'adjunct هي الأصلية ديالها هي هذه adjunct bar add adjunct 0. Oh, adjective, I'm sorry, I say adjunct. It's adjective, right? Adjective. So adjective, not adjunct, sorry. But never mind, I think you understand. Okay, okay. Yes, this is adjective bar. This is adjective 0. And then you have cold. Okay? Now, this is an adjective bar, which means that I have an adjunct to it. هذا adjunct غير ديال الادجكتيف ماشي ديال noun. So it's extremely اللي هو adverb. adverb double bar, adverb bar, adverb zero. هنا عندي extremely, sorry for the handwriting. هل extremely كيفاش كنديروا ليها؟ Okay, nice. So extremely cold. عاد نجيو دابا هنا. Glass of water is very easy because now I have N0 glass. And then of water is a P double bar where you have a P bar and then P0 of. And then you have water here, which is N double bar, N bar. And then N0 water. Very good. So this is the thing. I don't know who asked me. Is it, I don't know. Is it Picasso? Picasso, if you understand, please let me know. All right. I mean, the relative clause can be reduced. That's true. That's true. Oh, I'm very happy that you're saying greatly illustrated. Thank you very much. I'm really happy. Okay, great explanation as usual. Thank you, Si Mustafa. Okay, are there other questions or shall we call it a day? I see that the number of viewers are in constant decrease, in indication of the fact that they have been overworked. They are tired, and it's normal because these are very tense moments, both for professors and for students. Thank you for your efforts, Professor Abdel Moula. Marhaba, Si Abdel Moula, you are welcome. Thank you. Is there any urgent question that you would like us? Ustad Atimad, you are still with us. Thank you very much. It's really nice of you. Really. Thank you. Anyway, well, I think it's time for us all to have some time off. Thank you, Si Mustafa Murshid. Barakallahu fik. I think it has been a good session. I have not been able to answer all the questions with detail, but I hope I have given you some snapshots from here and there. Picasso, yes, thank you so much. You are welcome, Mr. Picasso, GSM. I am afraid because I promised my students to have this review of what has been covered in a module of quantitative data analysis. There will come a moment when I will do that very soon. Make sure I will do that before the final exam. So thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you have spent some good time with us. Thank you. Okay, so welcome and have a great night. See you maybe tomorrow. So I will see if I can have a live session tomorrow. Thank you so much, and let's meet on another occasion.